Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday. It is the day before Thanksgiving if you're watching from the US. So say hello. Hopefully, you are taking some time off, hanging out with your family a little bit. That's what I am doing. So if my kiddos wander in, just know they are here. And I have tried to keep them quiet, but we'll see. They sometimes have other plans. So, anyway, I'm excited for this week's episode because I want to talk about a few things that are very timely right now. And that's really the purpose of Power in Numbers Live, is to allow a place for you to come and get your questions answered, but also to talk about things that are a little bit more timely than what I typically talk about in my YouTube videos, since those are meant to last for a long time. But I still like to talk about what's going on, how it affects small business, what you need to be thinking about when it comes to your finances. And so that's what we do here on the last Wednesday of every month for Power in Numbers Live. So welcome, whether you're joining me for the first time, you're watching this on replay, say hello, tell me where you're watching from. And hopefully you find this interesting. Okay, so first and foremost, I have to shout out our sponsor for today, which is OnPay. I just switched to OnPay, which is a payroll company, and I am really liking what I see so far. I've actually been documenting that journey on the YouTube channel. So if you're curious what it's like to switch payroll companies, I was very intimidated actually. I've switched payroll companies before, but my payroll is a little bit more complicated than it used to be. So I was a little worried it was going to be difficult. It has been the easiest, most seamless process ever. And I've been documenting each step of the way. So if you know, maybe for the end of this year, you want to switch, or maybe starting in 2026, definitely check that out. And also, of course, sign up with my link if you decide to join OnPay, because of course I have special bonuses. So you'll get a $100 cash bonus if you sign up for OnPay, especially by the end of the year. Also, if you sign up before the end of the year, if you decide to run your payroll, if you want to switch your payroll in this quarter, some people think they have to wait till the beginning of the next quarter. You actually don't. And in fact, if you switch during Q4, then OnPay will handle all of your year-end reporting needs. So your W-2s, your 941s, all of that comes for free, even if you only run one payroll with OnPay. So some payroll companies charge you for all of that. It depends on the plans that you're on. But OnPay does it for free. So if you do switch before the end of the year and run a payroll before the end of the year, they will do all of that for you for free. Okay. Awesome. Hi, how's it going? For whatever reason, I'm not seeing the number of people on. So tell me you're here. If you're here, and I'm excited to see you. Okay, so today, first of all, let's get into our first our first segment of the day. All right. So this is our news segment. We always start with news, then we go to to-dos, and then we go to Q's, your questions at the end when we do Power in Numbers Live. So I'm going to start with news. And this one was really easy to come up with what I wanted to talk about this month. Some months are slow months in terms of what's going on. But this month, I really wanted to focus in on health insurance. And health insurance, both from your perspective as an employer, if you have employees, and also from your own personal perspective, because I know a lot of us, right? We don't get, we're business owners. We don't get a health plan from our company. So a lot of you might be on private insurance. Some of you might be on the ACA. And so a lot of these changes either affect you personally or they're going to affect your employees. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on with this. I'm going to take the politics out of it as best I can and just talk about what's actually happening and what we need to be prepared for. Okay. So you may have noticed there's been this whole fight and what Congress has been fighting about, and what this whole shutdown brought to light was these expiring ACA subsidies. So essentially, it's not all of the subsidies that are going away. However, these subsidies were expanded. These are the for the Affordable Care Act. They were expanded back in 2020 and 2021 to essentially be able to apply to more people. Okay. So what happened there is it allowed, people who maybe made a slightly higher income, but again, it really was only going to people who were spending more than 8.5% of their salary on their health insurance benefits. So it's not necessarily that this is, something that is going to like millionaires and things like that, right? But it did expand it past, what those income levels were. And that helped to make health insurance more affordable. Well, flash forward, health insurance has gotten even more expensive. And I'll show you that here in a minute. It's gotten even more expensive. We've had some very big years where health insurance has increased, and it's only expected to continue to increase. So here's what I'm showing. There's a link for you real quick. Let me share my screen for this article that is specifically talking about this from an employer standpoint. So from an employer standpoint, the most recent survey was showing that about a 9% healthcare cost increase for 2026. That's a lot. Like 9% is a very sizable number. This gives you some additional details as to why, if you're curious. There's a lot of different reasons why this is happening. It's not a, one size fits all thing. But let me show you this link. So you can find this link here. So you can kind of find out more about what's going on. And again, if you offer health insurance, this is kind of what we're seeing. Now, 9% is a lot, but actually for those who are on the ACA, and especially if they fall into a specific bucket, we're seeing more like 100% increases or more. So this is more for private insurance, but that's increasing too. So I want to show you there's kind of two sides to this coin. Even if you're not on the ACA or your employees aren't, this can still affect you significantly. So we'll talk about that. The other thing I wanted to show you was this article, which is right here, that I will pull up. And it has a good... nope, that's not it. Let's go to this one. Hang on a second. So, let's see. Stop screen on that one. And I need to share screen on this one. Tech is fun, y'all. Okay, this is the one I wanted to see. So this was the survey, and this is again by the same group, this business group on health. So this is talking about for employers. But you can see what I thought was most interesting, if you can see this, is this table here, which shows, we'll accept some cookies, I suppose, which shows how healthcare costs have increased. This goes from 2017. So you can see here, if you're looking at this is projected. Let's look at just the projected right now, right? And we can see that in 2017, it was 6%, 6%, 6%. 6% basically, 6.5%, 6%, 6.6, 7.1, 8, 9, right? So over time, we've gone up now since 2017, 62%. This is total healthcare costs that employers are expecting to have. 62% higher than 2017. That was only 8 years ago, right? 62% increase. That is a lot. So this isn't just premiums. This is total cost of healthcare, right? And again, there are a lot of reasons for this. This goes through some of those reasons. So if you want to see some of the reasons, right? Even some of the GLP-1 usage is increasing healthcare costs, cancer. There's a lot of different things that are increasing the actual cost of healthcare, which then increases your premiums as well. So that's really an important thing to know, that they're rising all over the board. So if you think that the discussion around the ACA subsidies is just going to apply to that, one of the reasons that we're in this place is, and one of the reasons that, so for example, I have a private healthcare plan. Mine is going up as well. I'm not on the ACA. So why is mine going up? Why do these subsidies have anything to do with me? Well, one of the reasons is total cost of healthcare has gone up in general. But also, and kind of contributing to that increase, is the fact that there is an assumption that less people are going to be insured in 2026. And that's largely because of these huge increases that some people are going to see because of these subsidies dropping off. So what happens when people leave the insurance pool, even if they are, it's the greater insurance pool, that increases cost because now Hospitals are going to have more people who aren't insured. They're going to have to increase their costs for insurance companies to essentially cover uninsured people, right? So your overall cost of healthcare then increases. And essentially it's a risk pool thing, right? So if the total risk pool goes up, because most of the people likely that are going to opt out of insurance next year, if their premiums double or more, can't afford it, understandably so. In that case, those are usually going to be the more healthy people that are dropping out of the risk pool, right? If you are more at risk and you know you're going to need treatment for things, you're probably going to stay on it. If you have, any kind of pre-existing condition, right? You're probably going to stay on your health insurance. The people that are going to drop off are people that are like, you know what? I'm going to take my chances. I'm pretty healthy. Let's see what happens, right? And in that case, what occurs? I have a daughter wandering in. Come say hi. You get to come say hi. Just a quick wave. If you come into my office during a live, you got to come say hi. Okay. She's stealing paper. Okay. Close my door, please. The joys of working from home, friends. Where was I? So what happens when the risk pool changes, right? When healthier people drop out of insurance plans in general, insurance companies then also have to increase premiums to make up for that. So that's why even if you're not on an ACA plan, you're seeing increases. Or even if your subsidies aren't going away for your ACA plan, you're still seeing increases, right? So it's kind of this like this wheel, right? It's all related and it all exacerbates the problem. And I'm concerned about where we go from here. We have got to make some changes in the healthcare system. I do not know what they are. I am not a healthcare expert, but I know that this is not a good situation to be in, and it creates a lot of uncertainty. Okay, so for those who are curious more about this subsidy expiration, I'm going to put up an article here. Let's see. Here's one article that gives a little bit more details about what's going on. And that is an interesting article that gives, a little bit more specifics if you're curious about what is expiring, what isn't expiring, how is this expected to affect people. But then the one I found interesting, I found this article right before this actually, and I wanted to put this up about the subsidy cliff. So here's one of the things that I think is an unintended consequence, and here's how it can affect us as business owners as well, right? So it may actually discourage some people from working or working as much. And honestly, it's completely justified, and I'll tell you why, right? So let's say that your subsidies are going away. So again, these subsidies are for a specific group of people that make under, I think it's 400% of poverty line, right? So if you are over that, even by $1, that's what when we say cliff, that means if you are over the amount for your, modified adjusted AGI is over that amount by $1, you lose all of the subsidies. And I, as an accountant, hate cliffs. Phase outs 100 times out of 100 are a better way to go, because otherwise you accidentally disincentivize the things that you want to incentivize, right? We want people working. We want it to make sense for them to work. But what happens, and these are real cases, and I've seen these as well. I think they give a good example down here. Let me find it really quickly. Okay, so yeah, this is talking about the various cliffs. Okay, so for example, I'll read this out because I know it's small. For example, a one-person household earning more than $62,600. We're not talking about millionaires here. This is a one-person household making over $62,000, right? They're not millionaires by any stretch. That doesn't go nearly as far today as it used to. $62,600 in 2026 would lose all ACA subsidies because they are over that threshold by just a little bit, which are also called premium tax credits. For a 4-person family, that threshold is $128,000. And here's an example. Let's see. Let's come down here. Okay, with enhanced subsidies, when this year, right? Like that would be applying for this year and previous, the family would pay $11,220 in annual health premiums, and this is for a family earning $132,000, ages 10 and 12, would pay $11,220 in annual health premiums or $935 per month, previously. Now, without these subsidies, they are now paying $25,900 in annual premiums. That is more than double what they were paying before, right? However, and here's why this is a problem, why I hate cliffs. If they reduce their work income by about $4,000, if they make $4,000 total less, that would save them $14,700 in health premiums, because they would then be able to get the subsidies, the full subsidies. Cliffs are a bad idea. Cliffs are just, I don't know why we ever have cliffs, because it makes it such that you have to play games in order to make sure you don't accidentally shoot yourself in the foot. We don't want to disincentivize people from making money, right? It's better if they do, but we should have a phase out such that, okay, if they make X amount, most things phase out over time so that you don't have this like $1, okay, $1 before and after. Most people aren't aware of these cliffs. So they may inadvertently, right? If you don't know this, if you're not a tax person, you may accidentally make just a little bit above it. And then all of a sudden you're paying thousands of dollars more. And that's ridiculous, in my opinion. And that needs to be fixed. And so whether these subsidies need to be extended in their current form, or there needs to be some other methodology for doing this that gives some relief to those people that kind of fall in this middle ground, but are still paying a large percentage of their income towards health insurance premiums, right? We need to help those people. Like, it's ridiculous to have to pay 10% of your total income in health insurance premiums. That's crazy, right? That's crazy. And that's before taxes. So I feel really strongly about this. And part of the reason that I also feel strongly about this topic is because of the fact that I actually I have a small company. So including myself, there are 5 full-time employees in my company. And so we try to roll out benefits that are helpful to our employees. I'm constantly talking to my employees about what they most want in terms of benefits. Where are we going to put that money? What's going to be most helpful to them? So one of the things that I've been wanting to look at for a while is health insurance. And it came back up this year because we hired 2 new employees this year. And so we wanted to look again to see, hey, does it make sense for our small business to offer health insurance? Now, for those of you, if any of you are small businesses with, say, less than 50 employees, it's pretty hard, especially if you go down to 5 employees, right? It's pretty hard to find anything that is remotely affordable. My own premiums, when we priced it out, we're going to almost triple from what I'm currently paying for my family on private insurance, which is kind of crazy, right? And what I realized in this process is that because I do have, an employee who uses the ACA, what I found in this process is that if I were to offer health insurance, right, even if I paid a good portion of that health insurance, through the company, and the company paid for it and subsidized it for them, she would still be paying more than what she was paying, right, on with the ACA. And I have to be really careful too, because if I do offer this health insurance, all of a sudden she's not even eligible. My employees aren't eligible for the ACA if I'm offering health insurance. So there's a lot of rules like that we need to be aware of as small business owners, because what I don't want to do is actually make it more expensive by me paying money and offering a program to make it more expensive for my employees. That is not the point. I don't want to do that. Right? And so I've had to have this ongoing conversation with my employees about, what do they need? How can I help them the best way I can, but also not put them in a tough spot? And it's been really hard. And I totally agree with you, Lee. There is very little support. Like, small business is different. You have a bigger risk pool when you're talking about, part of the reason that small business, again, has trouble with rates for health insurance is because I have 5 people on my team. And literally, if like 2 of them opt out, all of a sudden it also increases my rates. And depending on, there's not as much risk to be able to spread that around. Now, bigger companies have a bigger risk pool, which means they can get lower rates. Small companies have a small risk pool, right? If one of my employees ends up having to go in for surgery or something, that's a big proportion of my employees. And so that risk ends up getting borne by everybody else in the plan. And so it's really hard to find anything affordable for small business health insurance. If you have, let me know, because I would love to find something. But from the research that I have done thus far, it's really been difficult to find anything. Now, there are also some programs that I looked into too, where you can actually reimburse if you do it the right way, right? You can reimburse your employees and give them essentially cash to reimburse their own private health insurance or ACA or whatever they're doing. The problem with that is the same thing happens. They can't get any subsidies if they are eligible for a plan through their employer. So if they, again, so it kind of forces people who might be better off on the ACA to join a health insurance plan that is more expensive and has less coverage, and also, is more expensive for you as an employer. So it's really just, it's been driving me crazy because I have been struggling to find a solution that will work for everybody, right? And I really, I recommend talking to your employees about what they need, even what they're currently paying, so that when walking into discussions, if it's going to be worthwhile, especially if you have a small team. Those conversations become harder as you have larger teams. But it is hard. I mean, I think more small businesses would offer health insurance if it was in any way affordable and if it actually felt like it helped our employees, right? So that's kind of where, like, my personal side of where I've been running into this. And I think it's worth keeping an eye on, but I think we have to make sure that we're staying in touch with our employees and talking through this, because it's expensive out there, y'all. It's expensive. And, we want to make sure that we're doing our best as an employer to offer things. So for me, I'm like, okay, well, we're going to figure out other things that we can offer that can hopefully offset some of the costs that they're paying without it being a direct reimbursement for health insurance. So maybe there are some other benefits that we can give that would be better. But it is a frustrating situation, and I feel it very personally right now. So anybody who's going through this, again, you may be going through this because you're a business owner and you're using the ACA, right? Or again, even if you have a private health plan, it's probably going up by a decent margin, right? It just probably is. And so what's the fix? I don't know, but we don't need, the cliff is a terrible idea. The cliff is an awful idea. It's a situation that leads to gaming of the system. It also disenfranchises people. I'm so anti-cliffs. At least let's come up with a more realistic phase out for this that still helps the people that need help. So we'll see what ends up happening, but we're kind of running pretty close to the deadline here, right? Like, a lot of open enrollments end by December 15th. And right now, the rates that people are being presented with, a lot of people are just going to opt out. And then that's going to make everything more expensive for everybody else, right? Okay. Yes. It's crazy. It's so broken, and we need to find a way. Hopefully, I don't know, this might be totally a pipe dream, but hopefully we can come together and figure out something that's going to help real working people, because that's who we don't need to be disincentivizing work. We need to be incentivizing people to work and make money. We need to be creating an environment where small businesses can actually offer this and have it be something that actually makes sense to do, right? And doesn't create all kinds of problems or, make it much more expensive for people. So anywho, those are my thoughts. But that's what I wanted to talk about now. And I'm really watching this through the end of the year because I do think there will be changes. I've been seeing some talk of maybe they'll come up with some plan. I'll believe it when I see it, right? But at the very least, I feel like we need at least an extension. If they don't know what they're going to do, give a year extension, so that then you have time to come up with a new plan, right? Do something to create some real relief now, because I worry about walking into 2026, how much more broken our healthcare system is going to be. So, all right, that's my aside for today. That's my soapbox moment. Let's get into our next section for today. All All right, we're in the to-dos section. So there's a couple things that you're going to want to do. Just piggybacking off that conversation that we just had, I still think it's always worth it if you're thinking about offering health insurance to reach out and talk to probably your payroll company or whoever you're using to see what kind of options there are for you. And that's something that I plan to do each and every year and reassess because things are changing so much. And also talking to my employees about how their needs are changing too, right? So that's something really important to me, to be kind of keeping a finger on the pulse of what they need and making it clear that I'm here to hopefully provide a solution that's going to be helpful for them. So I would encourage those conversations. I would encourage reaching out to your payroll company. Go ahead and use OnPay if you want. If you're thinking about switching, like OnPay is one they do offer benefits directly through the platform. So that could be an option as well. So, but it's worth looking into. And it could make sense. Like my situation might be different than what yours is. So it could make more sense for your team at certain times. And the next thing that I think you want to do is to start planning. Now is a great time to start planning for next year. Some of you were on my CFO reset. I did a whole workshop. It was about a 90-minute workshop a couple of weeks ago to help people plan for next year. I gave some free worksheets to help them kind of create their cash flow forecast for next year. We got so much great feedback from that session. It is available on replay. So if you want to kind of set aside 90 minutes to do a guided working session with worksheets and all the things that you need, it's still available. You can either buy it for $197 or you can go buy my book, Hidden Profit, and get it for free. So if you have already bought the book, you can also, if you have forgotten to put in your receipt and grab your bonuses, we have several bonuses. The workshop replay is one of them. But you just go to jamietrull.com/hidden profit and put in the information about where you bought it. You can buy it on Amazon, bookshop.org, wherever you want to, and then enter your receipt number and you're going to get all of the bonuses. And you're going to get that replay. So that's going to help you plan. It's great for, if you just need to sit down, you're like, I don't have that much time, but I can find 90 minutes to sit and start planning for next year, thinking about what my offers are going to be, what my cash flow could look like, that kind of stuff. That's all the things we did in the workshop. It was super fun. So I highly recommend it, but you got to buy the book or just, if you really want to, you can pay $197, but I think the $29 book is probably a better deal. Okay. And you get a book out of it, right? Here, well, here's that's why I've still got all the, this background was up from our launch party for the book, but here's my giant foam board of the cover of the book, which has been really exciting to see people also kind of sharing on social media that they're reading the book and enjoying it. And so grab that. Or if you want to do the Audible version, that exists. I actually narrate it. So go check that out. Okay. Next thing we're going to talk about, it's massive. It's absolutely massive. All right. The next thing that we're going to talk about is, let's see. Okay. What are you doing? Yeah. My daughter just showed up at my door with a copy of Hidden Profit, and I think she said she's going to go read it. I don't know. So there you go. Even for 8-year-olds. Okay. Let's see. Okay. The other thing that I want you to do right now is to start reviewing your tax situation with your hopefully you have a tax person, a tax planner of some sort, who now is a great time because you can sit down with them and say, okay, let's look at how much we've paid in for the year. Let's look at how much we're expecting to owe for the year. And there's more you can do now, right? Once we get past the end of the year, there's only so much that we can do to impact this year's tax burden, right? But if we can look at it now and say, you're going to owe an extra $20,000 that you weren't planning on, you could make some decisions that could help you. For example, you could put more money into your retirement plans, right? There's some additional things that you can do. We don't want to go spend a bunch of money just to save on taxes. We know that's not a good idea, but you might want to move some expenses that you're going to have for next year up into this year, potentially, to help you bring that tax burden down. But once you get past the end of the year, there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do. So we want to make sure that we're taking a look at that. And this is a great time to be talking with your tax person about this to make sure that you are not surprised come April, right? We don't like April surprises. Least favorite surprises are the tax surprises. They're rarely good surprises. So we want to make sure that we are prepared for taxes. And this is a great time. I usually say kind of October, November timeframe is great to sit down and do that, and then make a plan of action between now and the end of the year on what you're going to do. So that is a definite to do. Okay, now we're going to jump into the next section for today. All right, it's the Q's section. News, to-dos, and Q's. Now we're on to Q's. We're going to take your questions. I have a couple of questions that were submitted or that I've seen around. So I'll go through those first. If you have any questions, put them in the comments now on anything, financial related, what you should be doing. If you have questions about the insurance stuff I was talking about, feel free to put it in. But I'm going to go through a couple of these questions that were pre-submitted. So the first one was from Yvette, who said, how do you update salaries for staff and owners yearly? Okay, this is a great question. So I'll tell you, it depends. There are lots of different ways to do that. I do think it's important to look at salaries each and every year, especially when we are in periods of high inflation. We need to make sure we're keeping up with market rates. But in addition to that, we also need to make sure that our employees are feeling seen and heard. They feel valued, right? That's really important. But also, right, on the other hand of that, we also need to consider our own business performance and cash flow and what the business can handle, right? And so it can be difficult sometimes to balance those things where we want to give maybe more increases to our employees, but depending on when we, do our cash flow forecast, which again, you can do if you go grab the CFO reset workshop as a bonus to my book. But you want to look at your cash flow and make sure that if you increase salaries, you're going to be able to meet that additional burden that you're going to have. And so you kind of have to balance out those things a little bit, and it can take some back and forth on what you can do, because know that when you increase salaries, that's an increased cost next year, the year after, right? Like you're increasing bases. Another option, especially if you have really up and down cash flow and it can be difficult to determine what you can do, is to create a little bit more of like a performance-based type of compensation structure. I still think you need to pay people a living wage via base salary. People need to know what they can count on, but also having abilities where they can share in, even if it isn't specific equity that they're getting, right? They're not necessarily getting ownership in the company, but they are getting a, payout, a bonus, something based on the performance of the company. And that can be based on, their specific division or whatever, or it can be based on the overall performance of the company that then can dictate any additional amounts that you can pay out. So I like to have kind of that balanced structure where I'm making sure to pay my employees well, but I'm also making sure that I can handle that burden, because I don't want to have to lay people off at some point because I increase salaries too much, right? So it's really this balance of figuring out the best place to land. But I do love a compensation package that includes some ability to pay them above and beyond when the business does well. So that's just something to think about. As far as your owner salary, if you're an S corporation and you're paying yourself an owner salary, that's a bit of a different process. I actually sell these IRS defensible owner salaries. So if you want to grab your RC report, you can do that. That's where you can actually have a study performed. I review each and every one of them, and you can find out what your reasonable salary is for what you do in your business. And essentially it uses the many hats approach. So we know that owners do a million different jobs. And so it kind of creates a weighted average of what your salary should be that will be IRS defensible. And also I review it to make sure that you aren't inadvertently paying more in taxes than you need to. So that's one of the things that I'm always looking for when I review those reports. So if you are an S Corp owner, your salary, you can use this. And actually, there's a back end way to use this. If you get an RC report, you can actually, if you want to, before running it for yourself, you can even kind of test out and search for different roles. And you can see what the potential wages are for those different roles, even if they're staff members of yours. So I've done that before, where I'll go into the RC report system and search for roles of my staff to see what it's saying. It pulls information from the US Department of Labor, from various different proprietary sources to come up with average salaries. So you can also do that. Benchmarking is also a good thing. We want to make sure that we're benchmarking specifically to the area where your employees live. Not where you live, but where your employees live, because they're paying the wages of where they live, right? Like they're paying for things in their specific area. So if they live in a high cost of living place, we need to be thinking about that as well on our side. All right. Let's see what else. The other question, I wanted to address this because I've seen this question as well coming through. And it relates to the ACA subsidies. So given what's happening with the ACA subsidies, should I look into offering health insurance for my small team? Well, we kind of talked about this quite a bit, right? The answer is always yes. Keep it on your radar screen. It's always worth looking to see if it makes sense and talking to your specific team about what their needs are, right? We do surveys routinely where we're sending out asking, here are 5 potential new benefits we're looking at. What's most important to you? So that might be a way to gauge what's most important to your team. We did this. I thought health insurance was going to be the number one thing a couple of years ago when I first did this. And actually it wasn't, because many of my employees were covered via their spouse or another affordable plan. And what I found instead is they wanted support with their student loans. And so we implemented a student loan reimbursement program through the company. So you never know what your employees are going to want. And especially with small teams, it's so important to be asking, right? And not assuming we know. So it's always a good idea to check in and see what's going on. But again, remember, if you have employees that are on the ACA, just by offering a health insurance plan to them might make them ineligible for the ACA. So we need to think about that as well. All right. Next question. This is the big question that keeps coming up right now because it's November and we're thinking about it. How do I know if I've paid enough in taxes this year? So there's a few different ways that you can do this, right? Again, sitting down with a tax professional is going to give you the closest estimation, because likely what you've been paying in estimated taxes wasn't based on this year's earnings. It was probably based on last year's earnings. And so if you have changed significantly from your situation from last year to this year, right? That is when you probably want to sit down with somebody to talk about this and make sure that you're covered, especially if you have significantly outperformed last year. So if you're paying estimated taxes based on what you earned last year, but you're earning a lot more this year, that's where these surprises come in, where all of a sudden you weren't prepared for a big tax bill that shows up, I'll say at your door, but really on your computer screen, right? So you definitely want to be kind of figuring out what have you paid in thus far between any estimated taxes you've paid, anything that's been taken out of your paycheck, if you pay yourself a paycheck, right? And adding all of that up, looking at your total family situation of how much you've paid in, and then trying to estimate as best you can, or working with a tax person to estimate what your total tax liability will be. I do these obsessively this time of year, like literally obsessively. I'm sitting down and trying to see where I'm going to come out and make sure that if my tax bill is going to be more than what I've paid in this year, I have it sitting aside. I'm not spending it on anything else. It's sitting in a separate account. I do it through Relay, right? Where I have it in a separate tax savings account. And so when it's time to pay that, I will pay it via that account, and it will not feel as painful as if I have to come up with that money, from somewhere. Let's see. So there we go. All right. So those are thoughts on that. Oh, and I do have a video if you want to kind of go back into how can you estimate this, try and estimate this yourself. I do have a video called 3 Simple Numbers to Estimate Your Business Taxes Fast on YouTube. You might want to check that one out next. Okay. Leah's asking, are you going to do a topic on the new Big Beautiful Bill? Are there any benefits for small businesses? Yes, we've been talking about the Big Beautiful Bill in the last couple of Power in Numbers lives. So we have talked about several of the things around things like the no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. I've done a couple of standalone videos on some of those things too. And I think it's a mixed bag. Overall, I think, it's a mixed bag. On the plus side of things, though, the biggest plus I see in the One Big Beautiful Bill for small business owners is the extension of the qualified business income deduction. That is huge. It's 20%. It can definitely make tens of thousands of dollars difference or more for many small businesses. So that was a big win that I saw. I have, some issues with some of the other things in there, but QBI was made permanent, which I think is actually great for a lot of small businesses. So definitely check that out. But that's the biggest one. There are some other little things kind of in there that apply to you if you're into home investing, right? Or doing rental homes or anything like that. There's a lot of good stuff in there for you to be paying attention to. But I think for most small businesses, the biggest win is going to be around that QBI deduction sticking around. All right. Okay. Cool. Yes. All right. So any other questions that we have coming up? Anybody else have any other questions they want to ask about anything? And I'll let you go here in a minute for Thanksgiving. I'm excited about all things Thanksgiving. It's going to be an amazing, hopefully for everybody, it's going to be a nice, amazing time for us to kind of rest and relax. I love to eat. I'm a big fan of eating. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And I love that my team member asked this question. Because for me, and tell me in the comments what yours is, because this is a heated topic. I was at a event where people were getting asked this question and nobody brought up my favorite. And I was like horrified. I was like that person just like putting my hand up in the air, trying to get my question answered. But my favorite Thanksgiving menu item personally is the stuffing. Now, even though I live in the South, I don't call it dressing. I call it stuffing because that's what it is. All right. It's stuffing. It is my favorite. Okay. Turkey. Turkey is delicious. And I love turkey, but like stuffing is what I dream about, but to make and I still like, don't tell anybody. I know you're not really supposed to do this. There's some like health, whatever, but I still like my stuffing cooked inside the turkey. I know, but it's better that way. Ooh, green bean casserole or your great grandmother's dressing. Okay. You can, if it's from your great grandmother, you can call it dressing. I, however, like the literal bagged Pepperidge Farm stuffing is my favorite. Cooked in a turkey. Oh, it's amazing. That is what I could eat a whole plate, and I probably will. And then I will lie down for a long period of time. But green bean casserole, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one too. Mashed potatoes and gravy. So like, ooh, corn, man, y'all. Oh, now I'm hungry. I want all of these things. And somehow, like, I love Thanksgiving meal is like my favorite meal of all time. If you ask me my favorite food, I don't have a favorite food. I have a favorite meal. I do love pizza. That's probably my favorite food. That's what I'd say is my favorite food. My favorite meal is Thanksgiving. Give me like turkey and corn and stuffing and rolls and all the things. The mashed potato. Oh, give me all of it. That is my favorite. I will sometimes get like little, like the little like rotisserie chickens they have at like Publix and Kroger, right? I'll bring one of those home and I'll make a little Thanksgiving meal for my family. Usually that happens like the first cooler day of winter that I will get really excited and I will go, buy all the things and make a little mini Thanksgiving, but it pales in comparison to a real Thanksgiving. So that is that. Hopefully that got you like salivating a little bit. I know that I am. I'm very excited for this. Oh man. Yeah. See, I don't mind this. I don't mind because I am a huge Leftovers fan. So like, it's fine with me if only a couple people come. I'm still doing the whole thing. Now, thankfully, like my mom's doing most of the cooking. I'm only responsible for cookies. So I can handle, I'm using my great grandma's cookies. So those also come probably next after this, but I will be making those to bring to Thanksgiving. But anyway, y'all have a wonderful time. Rest and enjoy your holiday. And I will see you back here for the next Power Numbers Live. Actually, I think it's December 31st. Actually, we can do we'll do a little party. Do a little New Year's Eve party and talk about whatever craziness comes up between now and then, y'all. Who knows? We'll see. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.